Hello, my name is Dieterle. Welcome to my talk on using Raspberry Pi small board computers for red teams, or weaponizing your Pi. I've been a leader in the cybersecurity training world for over 10 years. I've written 11 books on security, which have been used by governments, universities, and training centers worldwide. I have also written countless articles for a number of security magazines and spoken at several conferences. If you're familiar with my books, then you know that they are light on theory and heavy on hands-on, and this talk will not be any different. We will delve right into installing and using Kali Linux on a Raspberry Pi, including wireless testing and command and control. We will then jump over to Dragon OS and cover some wireless spectrum analysis and using software-defined hardware like the Hack RF1. Though I base my talk on the Raspberry Pi, you can use the exact same things I will show you on a normal PC or a virtual machine. Enough intro, let's dive right in, sit back, and enjoy the ride. We will start with installing and using Kali Linux, and then we will look at Dragon OS. Let's walk through it all together.
In this video, we will cover installing Kali Linux on a Raspberry Pi. The steps for obtaining Kali Linux are the same for pretty much any operating system. Just navigate to the Kali Linux website, click Download, and then look for the platform that you need. As you can see, there is a download available for every current version of the Raspberry Pi. Personally, I use the 64-bit version for the Pi 4 or 400, but the 32-bit version is recommended for the greatest compatibility with most Kali tools. Notice too that there are different versions for the stick of gum size Pi 02W and the older Pi 0W. They are different architecturally on the inside, so they use a different Kali image. And the same is true with the Pi-tail versions. For those that don't know, Pi-tail is a special version of Kali on the Pi that uses a smartphone for a display. It's kind of cool, but I actually never use that. There are other ways to do the same thing without using the Pi-tail image. Choosing the correct version of Kali for your system is actually the hardest part of the install. As you'll see, the rest of the process is literally just burn, boot, and done. Download the version of Kali for the Raspberry Pi you have. Shown is downloading the 64-bit version of Kali for the Pi 4 or Pi 400. It's always a good idea to verify the checksum of the file after you download it. Many torrent programs will do this automatically for you. I will use the Windows host system to write my Kali boot image using a burner program called Bellini Etcher. I highly recommend Etcher. It works very fast and is very good. The download file is compressed. Etcher can decompress it when writing, but it greatly increases the burn time. It's best to use a program like 7-Zip to decompress the file first. Now you just need a micro SD card. I usually use SanDisk Ultra in 16 or 32 gigabyte. Depending on your computer, you may also need an SD adapter for it to fit correctly. Now just insert the micro SD card into your PC using the adapter if needed. Now all we need to do is write or burn the image to the card. In Etcher, just click Flash from File, then choose the Kali Linux image. Next, verify that you have the correct drive selected for your SD card. You don't want to have the wrong drive selected. When everything is set correctly, just click Flash. Now, just sit back and relax, or get a cup of coffee. Etcher will write the entire operating system to the SD card as a bootable image. After the image is written, it will go back and verify that the image was created successfully. That's it. You now have a bootable Kali Linux memory card for your Raspberry Pi. Now, just insert the card into your Raspberry Pi. Now just attach your peripherals to your Raspberry Pi, but the most important step is do not apply power until everything else is connected. The first boot up will take a few seconds longer as everything is initialized. Then just log in with the username and password of Kali. And in a few seconds, you'll be greeted with the beautiful Kali Linux desktop. Congratulations, you have just installed Kali Linux on a Raspberry Pi. No matter what version of the Pi you are using, the Pi 4 or 5 or the Pi 400 or 500, it'll boot up to the same graphical desktop as if you were running it in a virtual machine or on a regular desktop computer. It works and functions exactly the same. So you can literally have a desktop Kali system for a fraction of the cost of a regular PC. This is the latest version of Kali that was just released this month. The menus and all the tools are laid out exactly the same. And all the tools work exactly the same as they do in the desktop version. Though a handful of tools won't work on the Pi ARM platform, most do. You can also add new tools if they have a Pi compatible release version, like the Wi-Fi tool Angry Oxide, which we will look at in a minute. You can also run heavier programs like command and control tools. We will look at Sliver C2 a little bit later.
How easy was that? The best part of using Raspberry Pi for Red Team is its small size. This makes it perfect for pen test drop boxes or even for use on a hacking drone. The possibilities are really only limited by your imagination. Now that we have a functional version of Kali Linux, let's run through a couple tools together. We will start with Wi-Fi testing and then using Kali for command and control.
In this section, we will talk about Angry Oxide. Angry Oxide is a newer Wi-Fi attack tool, and honestly, one of my favorites. Angry Oxide is written in Rust. It's easy to use and has multiple attack modes. It kind of works like Beside NG. When you start it, it automatically attacks every Wi-Fi network in range. And it has an interface like BetterCap. Angry Oxide uses several techniques to grab Wi-Fi handshake keys very, very quickly. Installation is simple. Just go to the Angry Oxide GitHub site and download the release version for your platform. Then expand it and run the install program. That's it. You're ready to go. Using Angry Oxide is very simple too. Just enter sudo angryoxide-i in the wireless interface, and also use -t with a specific target SSID to attack, or it'll attack all targets. It takes a few seconds for Angry Oxide to get everything set and ready to go, and then when it does, you'll see the main Angry Oxide interface, and you'll begin to see it to start populate with targets that it defines, the MAC address, the channel, the power, the SSID, clients, and the transmission power. Now we can move across the top menu using the arrow keys, and this will show stations, and the most important one, handshakes. This is the handshakes that it is able to capture. The last tab is status, or a log view of what Angry Oxide is actively doing at the moment. Here you can see which access points it is targeting and with what type of attack. On exit, the app stores any captured data in a compressed file. If it successfully captures enough data, you could then proceed to attempt to crack the handshake and recover the target's Wi-Fi password.
You aren't limited to Wi-Fi testing. You can run almost any industrial standard testing tool on the Pi. You can even run more advanced tools like command and control. Command and control is cybersecurity hotness. C2s allow you to create exploits and then manage all the compromised machines from a menu type system. Many professional pen testers use Cobalt Strike, but there are many C2s that come in Kali that you can use without paying an arm and a leg for them. Let's look at one of the more popular C2s next, Sliver C2.
Sliver C2 is a multi-user capable cross-platform implant framework that supports C2 over mutual TLS, WireGuard, HTTP, HTTPS, and DNS. Sliver C2 is written mostly in Golang. The framework works with Windows, Mac, and Linux systems and makes it fairly simple to generate remote shell code for all three. The user interacts with their remote sessions using commands that are similar to Metasploit. You can even spawn a full Windows interpreter shell. Let's take a few minutes and check out the tool wiki site, sliver.sh. One thing that sets Sliver C2 apart from others is how polished and well documented it actually is. Let's start with read the docs. Always good advice that I follow sometimes. The Sliver wiki is very well written and covers all you need to know to get up and running fast. Because there are so many existing tutorials and such good documentation, this will just be a quick install and usage video. I highly recommend the student check out the wiki to fully understand the capabilities of this C2. Installing Sliver C2. The latest install directions from the tool website for installing is pretty straightforward. Just open a terminal window and use the curl and bash commands to download and install. It seems to hang during the install, but if you look closely, it actually prompted for the root password during the install. It just isn't very obvious. Enter the password and the install finishes. When the install is complete, just enter the command sliver. Generating implants. You can easily create cross-platform payloads with Sliver. In this video, we will cover using Windows payloads. The best way to learn is to just dive right in. So let's start by creating our first Windows payload called an implant using the generate command. All we need to do is use the command generate, provide the communication type, and the Sliver IP host address. You can use MTLS, HTTPS, or HTTP, WireGuard, or DNS, or you could choose multiple ones. When the generate command finishes, it produces an executable file that is saved in the output directory. The output file name is always 2 random words. Next, we need to start a listener service. Just type MTLS to start the MTLS listener. You can then type jobs to see what listeners are currently active. Now just copy this implant to a target Windows system and then open an administrator level command prompt. Serve to the directory that it's saved in and then go ahead and run it. My implant name is Salty Satire. I love the names. Once you go ahead and actually run the implant, you will instantly have an active session in Sliver. You can see our session is listed, or you could just type sessions to see any of the active sessions. To interact with our target, all you need to do is type use and the ID number. The session ID numbers are very long, but you can use tab completion. At this point, in a real-world engagement, you can begin enumerating the target system. You can use most DOS commands directly from the Sliver prompt. You could also use the execute commands to have commands run locally on the target, like popping calc. A popular red team joke. A lot of exploit modules open a seemingly harmless process and dump the shell code into the process and run it directly from memory. calculator and notepad were used a lot, hence the phrase, popping calc is a sign of compromise. Of course, in a real-world situation, you would use execute to force the target to run a command that's useful for your red team engagement. For example, we can run DOS enumeration commands using the execute command. If we use the -O switch, it will only echo the output local and not show any output on the target system. Here we are running whoami/all to see all the information about the target user, and then system info to pull system information. Depending on what type of testing that you're doing, a screenshot of the target can always be helpful. Just type screenshot and Sliver will take a copy of the target's desktop and save it on a local Sliver system. You could use this as actual proof of compromise, but you may also want to take screenshots of accessing critical information like corporate secrets, sensitive files, or personal information. Or maybe you just need to show that you successfully ran your tools on the target system for your pen test report. Interacting with the target system, privilege escalation, migrating to a system process, and running commands and modules. Sliver has numerous commands available. To see a list of many of them, type help. As you can see, many common commands are present, including regular system commands. Each command has a short description. You can get extended information on any of them by typing help command name. One of the first things you will want to do is attempt privilege escalation. You can do this with the get system command. If successful, this will create a new session at the NT authority system level, or as we used to call it in server support, God rights. Now all you need to do is use the new session and you will be NT authority system. This is needed to perform many elevated tasks like pulling password hashes from the system. Next, let's use the PS command to view the services running on the target system. You'll be given one page at a time. As you go through them, look for the Explorer service. Notice each service has a process ID and a PPID number. When finished, Sliver will helpfully display any AV program detected in memory. One helpful tool for stability and stealth is the migrate command. This command will move our Sliver shell and hide it in a system process. It's very similar to the Metasploit migrate command. Simply type migrate and -N with the process name or -P with the process ID that you want to migrate to. One common process that's used a lot is explorer.exe. And just like that, our shell is moved. Sliver has several third-party tools that expand the capabilities of the C2. This includes execute assembly, sideload, spawn DLL, and armory. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the first three commands. I'll let you explore them on your own. Execute assembly allows you to run a .NET assembly in a child process. Sideload allows you to load and execute a shared Windows, Linux, or Mac library in memory in a remote process. And lastly, spawn DLL loads and executes a reflective DLL in remote process memory. Lastly, we will cover Armory. Armory greatly expands the available tools and modules in Sliver, and it also provides the capability to run Cobalt Strike BOF, beacon object files. Just type Armory to get a list of all the modules and BOFs available. As you can see, there are many tools that cover every aspect of the cyber kill chain, from enumeration to privilege escalation to data extraction and more. Take some time and look down through the list. Each tool has a name and then a functional description of what it does. To use any of the tools, you first need to load them into our Sliver console using the Armory install command. You can then use the tool as you would any other tool in Sliver, including running help tool name. The help file for this one doesn't give us too much information, but we can also just run the mimikatz command now and get full information on the tool. We will use mimikatz to pull the logged on user password hashes from the target system's memory. We will use the command mimikatz privilege debug securelsa logon passwords. Once we have these hashes, we could crack them or try to pass them to gain increased access. Let's try another tool from Armory, this time the tool Seatbelt. Seatbelt is a very popular tool for security checks and system enumeration. Just install the tool with Armory, install Seatbelt. Then type Seatbelt local users. This will list all the users on this remote system. We can do other interesting things with Seatbelt, even including looking at downloaded files from Outlook. There's so many more features and capabilities of Seatbelt. Check out the tool documentation for more information. Next, let's use Sliver against a Windows domain server. Windows 2022 server versus Sliver C2. Before we wrap this up, I want to take a couple minutes and just talk about attacking a Windows domain using Sliver. There's really absolutely no difference. You use the same steps and the same procedures. You create a remote session, and then you use the tools and modules just as you would if it were a workstation. Let's just walk through this quick. We're able to get a domain administrator level shell, and now we just use that session, and then once we're in the session, then we type get system to up our credentials to the NT authority, which are God rights, and then just simply use a new session. We can use these rights to do things like pull password hashes from the system and grab some of the Kerberos information, which you'll see in a minute. If we wanted to, we can now pull a list of all the domain users from the target. Simply just type execute -O so it responds back locally, and then net users. We already have Seatbelt installed in Armory, so let's try running the Seatbelt command, and let's look for Microsoft updates. This could be very useful to see what updates have been done on the server so you can find exploits. The last thing I want to look at is, this is a domain controller. Let's see if we can get some Kerberos tickets from the users. For this, we will use the Rubius command, and we can install this with Armor install. Rubius makes it so very easy to run the Kerberosing attack. Just enter Rubius and Kerberosting, and it will go through and recover any of the Kerberos hashes that it can from the domain target users. Once you're able to recover the hashes, you can attempt to crack them. I cover this in my Password Cracking with Kali Linux book, and that could possibly give you access to a lot of additional accounts. Sliver C2 conclusion and wrap up. In this video, we covered installing and using Sliver C2. We covered many of its core features and functions. This was just a quick overview of Sliver C2. There are so many different tools and features that we didn't cover. This is currently one of my favorite C2s, and I highly recommend you look through the extensive documentation and give this polished C2 a try. It might be exactly what your company is looking for.